Hello friends, it is I, Trevor of Media Mementos, and here we are with the promised Q&A video at long last. We've got a lot of questions to cover and not a lot of time to do it, so let's get started. Who is Billy? Well, he is one of my closest friends, and he's the former co-owner, not co-host, not assistant, co-owner of the channel. He recently left in order to pursue a stronger film career and all that sort of stuff. We're still working together on other projects, just not Media Mementos, Besides, I was kind of always a little bit more into it than he was, but hey, we're still friends and that's all that matters. If you had to make one of your videos not exist, which one would you pick? Okay, I had to think about this one for a while, and I think I'd go with For Frog the Bell Tolls. No disrespect against the person who suggested it or anything, because it was a Patreon raffle review, but I didn't know what I was doing. I just kind of bluffed my way through the whole 10 minutes and I still can't watch it. I can never bring myself to go back and do it. And that's actually one of the biggest reasons why we have veto power now for the raffle reviews. Guess it was a learning experience, right? What made you want to start critiquing media in the first place? Good question. I don't know. See, I've always been a pretty opinionated person, I guess. I get it from my dad. We like to riff on movies and yell at the TV when it's very clearly not going to respond back to us, but we do it anyways, I guess, just to relieve stress or whatever. And I guess I've always wanted a platform to make my opinions known. And then, I think it was 6th grade or so, I found Ben the Looney, and keep in mind, this was before the whole Shotokan thing that he got himself involved into. And I was a big fan of his, like huge fan, and I wanted to be just like him. And then later on, I discovered the Nostalgia Critic, and it was the same thing. Wouldn't you know, both of those people have had a fall from grace. But I guess the whole concept of me reviewing media just continued all throughout those years, ever since I was in 7th grade. I first started off doing these, I don't want to call them reviews because I didn't even really review the stuff. I just kind of yelled and screamed. Every review series I tried in the subsequent years got better and better, and now here we are with Media Mementos, and I like to think we're pretty good. What is one of your videos that you wish did better? So are we talking videos, or are we talking like review analysis things here? Because there are two if we're going by those different things. If we're going by video on its own, the drawn together animatic. And it's got me really nervous for moral oral narcissism, not gonna lie. At the time of recording this, narcissism is about halfway to 2/3 done. So hopefully it does better than the drawn together animatic did. But in terms of video that I wish did better, it's actually one that I didn't make. It was Billy. It was this thing called, okay, I don't even remember the name. It was based on the real struggles of Jim Henson outside of the Muppets. It was a really good video, really informative, and sadly, all the things in there kind of applied to Billy too. Every time he tried to do something a little more, I guess you could say niche or out of the norm, never worked. At least in terms of views, which is a shame because he always put a lot of work into it. So yeah, I hope that answers your question well enough. What adult show do you think is overrated, and what adult show do you think is underrated? Well, for underrated, I gotta say Moral Orel. Yeah, it's got the niche thing going for it now, but it's not enough. I kinda want it to be mainstream, And then there's also Drawn Together because a lot of people don't seem to really get why it works. And as for an adult show I think is overrated, man, it's really tough to think of, But I just can't seem to think of any, Who are some of your inspirations for YouTube? Well, I mentioned Ben the Looney and the Nostalgia Critic for way back in the past. As for now, I was inspired mostly by Pie Guy Rules and TV Trash. TV Trash is still going strong, check him out if you haven't. And Pie Guy Rules, he got VTA'd. If you don't know what that means, go watch the VeggieTales Abridged video on this channel. But basically, he got pigeonholed into doing SpongeBob and Dan Schneider content, and he just didn't want to do it anymore. And every time he tried to branch out into award shows or streaming services, it never caught on. So it looks like he's focusing all his time into his job, and that's what he wants to do. I wish him the best. If I told you that a moral oral reboot with zero input from the creator was coming on, what would you picture? The Animaniacs reboot. What books on animation would you suggest? I haven't really read that many, but if you really want an interesting story, whether you're Christian or not, I suggest Me, Myself, and Bob, the story of Phil Vischer, the guy that made Big Idea Productions. And in case you don't know, that was the company that made VeggieTales. It's a real inspiring story of the rise and fall of that whole company and what went in behind the scenes in all the different videos and what caused them to implode. Again, I just don't know what happened. If you could hijack any train from the Thomas the Tank Engine franchise and drive it through the Mushroom Kingdom, which one would you pick? It's been ages since I've seen Thomas, but the one with the claw on his head, the one from the Magic Diesel 10, that guy. I could do so many wonderful things with that guy. How do you feel about the portrayal of mental health in media? I mean, as long as they're not trying to virtue signal, things have been going all right. There's been a greater focus on that, which I think is good, raise awareness. But as long as they don't just use it for like a cheap ratings grab or anything, or an attention grabber, seems like it's going okay. Is there a show considered by a lot of people to be bad, but good things came out of it? Yes, and I almost reviewed it on Media Mementos, but then I remembered Rowdy C from TV Trash already did it perfectly, and I can't add to it, because he talked about the show itself and the history. It's this thing called Supertrain. For those of you who don't know what that is, it was NBC's attempt to rip off The Love Boat, and it almost destroyed the channel. And it was because of that thing's failure that NBC was able to turn itself around and become the juggernaut that it is, not quite today, because cable is kind of dying, but at least the juggernaut that they were. What's your favorite episode of Moral, Oral, and why? Alone, because that thing, it takes you places, man. When I first saw that thing, I had to just stare out the window and just think for a little while. A lot of things, let's just say. Especially that scene with the teacher and the shadow and all that, and the bloody, yeah, that. And I guess that answers this question too. 2 birds in 1 stone. Are you still planning to redub some of your older videos on this channel? Yes, I am. It took a little while for the others to come out, and I say that as if any others have come out by this point. It's just that the Volvic one we did didn't do very well, so I wasn't sure if people really wanted to see it. But hey, it's worth another shot. I'm gonna be redubbing the Adult Party cartoon video Friday, I think? Because next is the character quest on the Healthy Band, because we finally reached that Patreon goal. Do you wish you could be known for things other than Moral Oral? I mean, I kinda am. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, Drawn Together, Jimmy Neutron, Ren and Stimpy. All those things are pretty nice, and also, I guess, there's an honorary 5th, covering obscure and wacky media, which, by the way, stay tuned, we've got a really intense one coming in February. I hope you like it. If you were a character in any media, which one would it be and why? Gotta be a Pokemon trainer. Isn't that what we all wanted to be when we grew up? Every so often, I think back to those times where me and my friend John were making our own Pokemon trainer characters and going on all kinds of adventures. We had like an arch enemy, we had a like comic relief character. It was great. In fact, I don't know if any of you remember this because I talked about it in a very old video. I think the top 10 Pokemon way back in the early days. I think first 2 months. I mentioned that when I was in 6th grade or so, John ended up moving away to Indiana. So we ended up making one final special, I guess you could call it, for our characters, wrapping the story up. It wasn't easy. But hey, we're in the same state again now, so that's cool. Happy ending. What's your favorite Peanuts special? Does A Boy Named Charlie Brown count? Because if not, then Charlie Brown Christmas. What got you into Moral Oral? I found it on an old VHS recording that I got, and the rest was history. I saw it, asked Billy, hey man, have you seen anything about Moral Oral? What do you know about it? And he told me a lot about it. I got excited, and I binged the show in like a day or 2 or so. And I have not been the same since. What's your favorite video you've made? Originally, if you would have asked me this about a week ago, I would have said Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but I think that's changed. My favorite video now is the Drawn Together movie. Yeah, that video I never wanted to make, ever, ever, ever. For the longest time I said I wasn't going to do it, but popular demand really changed things, I guess. That, and also I felt like it was finally time to kick that thing in the groin, and it worked. Not only do I feel like my points were really well explained there, and that a lot of people seem to like it, and the editing's good, and all that kind of stuff. But what I really like is that it kind of turned the tide for how people saw the movie. That thing was hated, like, by every single person in the Drawn Together fandom, minus a couple people here and there. But then when Mr. Enter did his video on it, there was kind of a counterculture movement for people wanting to, I guess, be apologists for the thing. And it was kind of because, if I'm being honest, he didn't do that good of a job reviewing it. First of all, he already doesn't like the show, so that's kind of off to a bad start. But then also, all he really talked about is how they have too many fourth wall jokes and that it's gross. Like I said in the video, there's way worse things than that in the movie. And then when our video came out, it kind of killed that counterculture for a bit, and a lot of people, I don't want to say opened their eyes because they were already open before, but I guess they were reopened, if that makes sense. All we need is for one of the Drawn Together creators to see it, and it will check off the box on everything that makes a Media Mementos video a favorite. Well, this here's a would you rather question that I had to think about for a little while, but I think I'm gonna have to go with the Drawn Together movie. At least I get to keep my hand afterwards, unless I chew it off to get free. Do you still think Altruist is the worst episode of Adult Party Cartoon with all the things we learned about Katie Rice and Naked Beach Frenzy? I think Altruist is the worst, but Naked Beach Frenzy is my least favorite. Structurally, Altruist is just broken. It's 45 minutes of nothing, it's not funny, and what makes me dislike it even more is that I looked at the commentaries and interviews on the DVD and they're singing the praises of this thing, and it's awful, truly awful. But, considering everything that went into Naked Beach Frenzy, I mean, I already don't like that kind of stuff to begin with, but I just can't go back to it. I can't. What's your opinion on the Cuphead show? I didn't see much of it, but from what I saw, it was alright. I was a little disappointed because I thought it was going to be more based on the games. But hey, they're doing their own thing, and it seems like it's going okay. Theme song's good, though. What year were you born? 1953. That was the year Dwight Eisenhower was inaugurated. What's your favorite character quest video? Clay. Definitely Clay. I'm really proud of how that turned out. I feel like I explored him to the best of our ability. And yes, he is bisexual. That's like the one problem people have with it is they say he's gay. No, he's not. You seen Gifts from God? He's definitely bi. But even so, it's not like that really matters. It's a small part of his character. I mean, unless you count the stop frame stuff. Yeah, that one definitely, I gotta say I'm really proud of it. Also, Read and Runt is one that I feel I did a really good job on, and I kind of want to go back and redo it. Not because I don't like it, but it's just because the topic was so much fun to talk about. You ever have things like that? Any content creators out there? Can you relate? Or is this just me being crazy? If there was any 80s cartoon that was resurrected and so on and so forth, I'm just going to be honest, none. No more reboots. Please give us something original, please! Which segments have you enjoyed making most? Character Quest or Anti-Character Quest? I have to say Character Quest mostly because it's easier to talk about characters I like than ones I don't like. Because with the ones I don't like, they all kind of cover a similar spectrum. Like Cam, they used to be awesome, but now they suck. Or Skinner, used to be awesome, now they suck. Or there's the outlier, Dejanay, always sucked, but just got worse. You see a pattern here? That's why Anti-Character Quest doesn't show up as much as Character Quest does. But yeah, overall I'm satisfied with both series, and if Fusion ever comes back, I'm not sure, it's mostly for special circumstances like crabs, maybe I'll enjoy that one just as much too. So this question is one asking me to cover more video game stuff, and I'm trying to avoid request questions in here. It's not like I'm trying to ignore people or anything, it's just that, we don't take requests. Sort of. I'll talk about that in a second. But I'm going to use this question here, or wherever it is I put it. to talk about why we don't do video game content anymore. No one watches it. It's not worth the time, especially since, I have to pay the editors to get these things done. It's not worth the time. Out of all the video game stuff we've done, there have been 2 hits, Whacked and UB Funkies. And it's not because we're talking about niche, obscure things either. We run the full gambit. There's the niche things like Pikmin or Danganronpa, or the mainstream stuff like Sonic or Donkey Kong. No one watches. The channel doesn't usually take requests, unless you're a part of the Patreon team. But we do take requests in the form of views. In other words, if a video does well, we know to keep doing stuff just like it. If a video doesn't do well, don't do it again. Avoid it at all costs. That's what we learned with the video game stuff. All the things we've done. Leon Kuwata, Donkey Kong, Big the Cat, Pajama Sam. It never works. Even stuff tangentially related to video games like Max Payne. People seemed really excited for that, talking about how Fox was messing with that movie and all that stuff, but because it was a game thing, people just didn't click. And I know that's the reason why. Because, I noticed the pattern, let's just say. When you're making these videos, do you have a strict schedule you adhere to? Yes and no. See, back when Billy was here, we used to get these things done like 3 months in advance. But now with these other editors and other things happening in my own life, kind of falling behind. I'm trying to record more now so I can go back to the 3 or 4 months ahead recording-wise. But also, these editors do take a little bit longer time to finish things than Billy, which is just fine. They're turning in really high-quality products. But also, especially lately, with the Patreon changing so much and more people donating and upgrading their tiers, the ending thing with the Patreon executive producers and the new Masters of Fate, we have to change that a lot. So sometimes, this actually happened with the upcoming Jonah video we're doing. We have the thing all done, ready to go, but then the tiers change again. And in fact, when you see the Jonah video, the tiers aren't going to be up to date. They will be next week. I hope you guys understand. It's just hard to keep up with these things, Especially when we're growing like we are. Which, by the way, thanks for that. Really appreciate it. If you met Clay Puppington and he started talking to you, what would you do? Turn around and walk away. He's not worth it. When are you going to send me some Mario Maker levels to beat? Soon, don't you worry. Last question here. What, in your opinion, is the most overrated film to ever exist? And what's the most underrated? Underrated is 1 Hour Photo, which is one of my favorites of all time. Robin Williams' psychodrama classic. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Overrated? Oh, the MCU has so many picks. I'm gonna get in trouble for that because my girlfriend's a big MCU fan and she's shown me the whole series. We haven't done that in a while though, so I think we just finished Avengers. But I have seen some scattered after that, and I hate Guardians 2 so much. I hate it, hate it, hate it. I don't know why people like it so much. It's really annoying. They can never seem to have a serious moment. They always interrupt it with a joke, kind of like Love and Thunder did. Though not as bad, I guess. That Mary Poppins thing didn't make me laugh. They massacred my boy Drax. Drax was the one character in the first film I liked. The one. And they flanderized him. Thanks, Marvel! So those were the questions, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll probably be doing another one of these soon, so get thinking about some questions, okay? You never know when one of these might pop up.